Straight ahead on Law&Crime Daily, the Parkland school shooter penalty phase trial.
He had a big, well, right now I know it's a backpack, but for me in that time it was a case.
Hear from the Uber driver who delivered the gunman to the school. And just weeks after the murder conviction is overturned, prosecutors want another trial for Tex McIver. Plus, jury selection begins in the first of several defamation trials against Alex Jones. And later, Brad Pitt versus Angelina Jolie, which A-list actor won the latest round as the pair face off in a legal battle. Law&Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law&Crime Daily. I'm your host, Brian Buckmeyer. The penalty phase trial of the Parkland school shooter enters week 2 as jurors hear from more survivors of the massacre and the woman who drove the shooter to the school. 17 people were killed and 17 more injured when a then 19-year-old gunman opened fire at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in 2018. In October of last year, the shooter pled guilty to 17 counts of murder and 17 more counts of attempted murder, which prompted his case to head straight into the penalty phase. It's now up to a Broward County jury to decide whether the shooter is sentenced to life in prison or given the death penalty. On Monday, jurors heard from another survivor of the massacre, 21-year-old Justin Colton. He explained he was just a freshman in high school when he was shot and injured.
I was in fourth period, just sitting there writing an essay, and then heard loud sounds like the gunshots, and then everyone began to run in the classroom. I had ran towards the back, towards the teacher's desk, and I was on the ground. I had my hand, and I was crawled against the ground.
Okay, and then what happened?
And then we sat there for about 20 minutes, or less than 20 minutes probably, and then the police had came into our classroom and escorted us out.
Did you get shot?
Yes.
All right, when did you get shot and where did you get shot?
When I was sitting or running towards the back of the room in my right arm and my lower right back.
Okay. So what happened as a result of your injuries?
I have a couple fragments still in my lower back, and then I have a scar on my arm as well.
Jurors also heard from Laura Zucchini, the Uber driver who dropped the shooter off at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
I picked him up and he comes in the car and he told me he was going to his music class, and that's all.
Okay, he said he was going to music class. Did he have anything with him?
Yes, he had a big, well, right now I know it's a backpack, but for me in that time it was a case,
okay.
A guitar case. He asked me if I was, I was from the neighborhood, so from the area.
Right.
I know I told him no, that I pick up some passengers and drop them in the area, that's all.
Okay. And did you observe what he was doing, if anything, while he was in the back seat of your RAV4?
Well, he was on the phone.
Joining us today is L.A. County Deputy Public Defender Philip Dube and co-host Terry Austin. Philip, on Monday, jurors were shown the AR-15 the shooter used to carry out the attack. What kind of impact do you think that could have on the jurors?
Oh, the visual impact alone is going to be that when the jury actually sees this semi-automatic rifle that has enough firepower and with enough ammunition can take out an entire city block, the jury is going to know beyond a reasonable doubt at least two of the aggravators. One of them is that he committed murder by way of aggravated child abuse, and the other way, or the other aggravator, is that an act was committed that created a great risk of death to others. So when they bring this gun in and the jury is to view that classroom and they see the firepower of that firearm, the people or the prosecution is going to be able to prove both of those aggravators.
Yeah, Philip, I know you and I have been there where they bring a gun into a courtroom and the whole jury kind of holds their breath. As a defense attorney, not that great, but in this case, I think the prosecution is doing well. Terry, how did the testimony from the driver add to the prosecution's argument that the Parkland shooter deserves the death penalty?
Well, Philip mentioned those aggravators. There are 7 of them, and I think what the prosecutor's trying to do is to show that it was cold, calculated, and premeditated, and also that he intentionally was trying to disrupt a governmental function like a school. The Uber driver, she actually said he told her to drive a certain way and to go to the school. So I think he's trying to show it's premeditated. I thought it was also interesting that the defense attorney asked a couple of questions. She hasn't been really asking any questions, but she said, did he ask for a pool car and was he nervous? I think she's trying to show that he wasn't premeditated and he wasn't calculated, that he was actually nervous and he could have been in the car with other people.
I mean, I know what I'm doing on this show, but I still get nervous. I don't know if premeditation and nerves, one can eliminate the other, but we'll see how that plays out in the Parkland school shooter's death penalty phase. Also in Florida, where authorities have taken down a large-scale drug trafficking ring allegedly led by a former state correctional officer. Ex-officer guard Christina Guess, along with her alleged supplier, Richard Morris Campbell, and several others were arrested last month, now charged with a slew of felonies, including trafficking and conspiracy. In total, at least 10 people were taken into custody, all allegedly involved in what investigators are calling the Guess organization. Investigators say the organization is believed to have trafficked up to 80 pounds of methamphetamine over the last year. Guess was previously arrested and sent to prison on similar charges. Police say when she was released, she got back into the drug trafficking. At a press conference, officials announced the drug ring is responsible for at least one death, a child who died late last year.
Identified in this investigation is a female by the name of Andrea Dunmeyer. In December of last year, we went to her house where her infant child was found deceased. We began an investigation into that matter and determined that that child died as a result of methamphetamine toxicology. We're not sure exactly how that occurred. Our homicide detectives are continuing that investigation, and we're working with the state attorney's office to hold her accountable for that. We don't believe that it was an intentional act, but likely through neglect. You know, it's sad. You think about, we know about the child who died as a result of the meth. But what we don't know about, that's the sad part. You know, this drug is extremely addictive. It ravages families. It tears families apart. Children are ultimately the ones that suffer from this because they're going to go without while their parents are out trying to feed their drug habit. So it's heartbreaking.
Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, the Alex Jones defamation trial begins in Texas after the far-right broadcaster called the Sandy Hook school shooting a hoax. But first, just weeks after his murder conviction is overturned, Georgia prosecutors call for another trial of Tex McIver. Welcome back. A Georgia man could soon be retried for the murder of his wife. This comes a month after the state's highest court overturned his initial conviction. 4 years ago, Claud Tex McIver was convicted in the shooting death of his wife, Diane. The couple was driving home from a party with a friend in 2016 when McIver allegedly shot his wife through the car seat as he sat behind her. During the trial, there was testimony that McIver shot the gun as a result of being startled awake, and that he suffered from a sleep disorder which could have caused involuntary movements. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. But the state Supreme Court last month ruled jurors should have been allowed to consider a misdemeanor involuntary manslaughter charge, not only murder. Now, the Fulton County District Attorney is planning to retry McIver on felony murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. He remains in jail, serving time for the one charge not overturned, influencing a witness. Terry, with the prosecution looking to retry McIver, the defense filed a writ of habeas corpus. What is that and why?
Well, Brian, you know, interestingly enough, I took 4 years of Latin. I don't remember much of it, but I do know that that means to show me the body, meaning that the defendant is going to be protected here against any sort of unlawful or indefinite imprisonment. He has a constitutional right to be treated fairly, and so technically he will be brought into court. He'll be delivered there by the prison, and the court will hold a hearing. And the court will have to then determine whether or not he should be detained. And I think here, the court is probably going to say, no, he doesn't need to be detained. He's already served a majority of his 5-year sentence. Remember, he was sentenced for influencing a witness. So he'll probably be let out of court while he waits for this additional trial.
Yeah, so that's him. That's what's going to happen before this potential trial happens. Philip, my question for you is what's going to happen in the trial? Because does the prosecution have to change the way they will prosecute the case after the Supreme Court's decision? And could we expect a plea or a trial in this case?
Well, it just depends on who's prosecuting it. But legally, of course, they could always offer him something, time served to an involuntary manslaughter. And the reason why his conviction was reversed was because the trial court erred based on a very sufficient showing of evidence that what he did was an act of involuntary manslaughter, which under Georgia law is a form of criminal negligence. And all it means is that it was an unintentional killing committed by a non-felony act, or that he committed a lawful act that resulted in death. And his story was that he was startled out of his sleep and he had a gun in his lap in the car while driving through a rough neighborhood, and the gun discharged. So the prosecution may have 2 more charges to prove up to a jury.
All right, we'll see how that continues. And of course, Law and Crime Daily will give you those updates as that case continues. Heading west to California, the father of Kristin Smart takes the stand as her accused killer and his father are tried for her murder. Smart went missing in 1996 when she was a student at Cal Poly. She was last seen with Paul Flores at an off-campus party. Several days later, she was reported missing. While Smart's remains have never been found, she was legally declared dead in 2002. The case went cold for years until the podcast Your Own Backyard reignited interest in Smart's disappearance. In 2021, father and son Paul and Ruben Flores were arrested in connection to Smart's murder, as prosecutors believe Smart's body was buried and then in their yard, but later moved. Paul is charged with Smart's murder, while Ruben is charged with accessory after the fact, accused of helping hide Smart's body. Last week, Smart's father took the stand as the prosecution's 3rd witness. Stan Smart testified that he had visited the Flores' family home several times, but has never stepped foot on the property. Testimony resumed Monday. The trial is expected to last for months. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, a legal win for Angelina Jolie as she faces off against ex-husband Brad Pitt. Plus, jury selection begins in the defamation trial of Alex Jones. For comments in the InfoWars host made, calling the Sandy Hook school shooting a hoax. Welcome back. Jury selection begins in Texas in one of the defamation trials involving Alex Jones, after the InfoWars host previously called the 2012 Sandy Hook elementary school shooting a hoax. In December of 2012, a gunman killed 20 first-grade students and 6 staff members at the Connecticut school. After the shooting, Jones told his audience it was fake and used actors aimed at increasing gun control. The trial in Austin, Texas, where Jones lives and broadcasts his show, will determine for the first time how much he must pay the shooting victims' families. Courts in both Texas and Connecticut have already found Jones liable for defamation. The beginning of the trial comes after months of delays, after Jones ignored several court orders and put InfoWars into bankruptcy protection. This first trial is just the beginning for Jones and his Sandy Hook conspiracy, as damages have yet to be awarded in separate cases in Connecticut. Jones has since said he believes the shooting happened, but claims he had a right to say it didn't. Opening statements are scheduled to begin Tuesday. Terry, why is the trial in Austin, Texas, of all places?
Well, a court has to have personal jurisdiction over the defendant, and jurisdiction will exist if the defendant lives there or if he conducts substantial business in that state. And it's in Austin, Texas, because guess what? That's where Alex Jones lives, and that's where he broadcasts his show. So that's the perfect place to bring this sort of trial. And it seems that he's going to quickly be assessed with damages. He's already been found liable because he's failed to respond to any of the court's notices thus far. So I think he is in for a lot of money damages and off to a bad start as far as he's concerned.
All right, if anyone knows why we're in Austin, it's going to be Terry Austin. Thank you for that. Philip, Alex Jones is a politically polarizing figure. Does this create challenges in jury selection, and how can those be resolved?
Well, there's a couple of things he can do. First of all, he can take advantage of what I call the home field advantage. If he's going to be tried by a local jury there in Austin, where he's from, they might, have a little sympathy for him because he is a local revered icon. Even though he is controversial, he will try to pick a jury that recognizes the importance of opinion and satire under our First Amendment. In other words, he's not really stating his opinion as an affirmation of fact, but it's understood that the audience didn't take it seriously or didn't really believe what he was saying, that it really was a form of satire and entertainment. Additionally, there's what's called the halo effect. And that means that sometimes when people have good attributes, because of prominence or because of celebrity, jurors tend to enshrine that person with those simple qualities and give them the benefit of the doubt.
All right, we'll see how jury selection and ultimately the case goes for Alex Jones. We'll keep eyes on it as it develops. A Mississippi police chief is fired when a racist audio recording is leaked. Law&Crime Network's Sierra Gillespie has the story.
I don't give a you kill a mother cold blood. I will articulate to fix the problem.
A shocking confession caught on tape as a Mississippi police chief brags about killing 13 people in the line of duty, all while using racist slurs.
I have shot and killed in the line of duty 13 different people. I shot that 119 times. Okay? I mean, I saved 67 kids, and a vehicle was shot 319 times. But he was hit 119 times by me.
Audio obtained by the Mississippi Center for Investigative Reporting through civil rights organization Julian features a recording of Lexington Police Chief Sam Dobbins. The audio was obtained by another officer, Robert Lee Hooker, who called it, quote, appalling, racist, hateful, and detrimental to the welfare of the people. Hooker resigned from the Lexington PD last week, citing a toxic work environment. In late July, the Lexington Board of Aldermen voted to fire Dobbins. An interim police chief has since been appointed.
Reporting for Law and Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.
When we come back, it's Angelina Jolie versus Brad Pitt, who won the latest round as the celebrity exes face off in court. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. Inmate Casey White is indicted on new federal charges in connection to his jailbreak with now deceased correction officer. Inmate Casey White and corrections officer Vicky White were last seen leaving the Lauderdale County Jail in Alabama in May. Investigators say the pair was not related, but believe they developed a romantic relationship while spending time together. The couple was on the run for days, sparking a nationwide manhunt that ended with a high-speed chase and a crash in Evansville, Indiana. Vicky White later died in the hospital. In early July, White was indicted on felony murder charges, alleging that while committing first-degree escape, he caused the death of Vicky White. Now, he's also indicted on charges of illegally possessing firearms at the time of his escape. In celebrity news, a win is granted to Angelina Jolie as she faces off against ex Brad Pitt in a legal battle over their wine company. The legal trouble begins with the once shared Chateau Mauval, a $164 million company and vineyard in the south of France. Before their 2016 divorce, the couple equally split shares of the business. After that, Pitt says they made a pact not to sell out their shares without their partner's consent. Pitt says Jolie ignored the agreement when she unlawfully sold her half of the business to Yuri Shelfler, a Russian businessman. Pitt called for a jury trial back in June, saying Jolie worked to undermine her ex-husband by forcing him into business with a, quote, a stranger with poisonous associations and intentions. Jolie's team later subpoenaed documents from Pitt, his business manager, and company. Last Friday, a California judge ruled in favor of Jolie, saying Pitt must turn over the documents to his ex-wife. The judge also ruled the documents need to be turned over even before Pitt's team could appeal the decision. Philip, Jolie has won the legal battle to get the documents from Pitt, his business manager, and as I said, his company, Mondo Bongo. Why do you think she would want those documents, though?
Oh, the root of all evil, money. You know, they got married, if I recall, in California, which is a community property state. And assuming they didn't have a pre or a post-nuptial agreement, or what we call a transmutation here, where Brad or Angie has separate property that they later transmute to community property, you start suing, guess what? You're going to file a cross complaint for 50% of the community property. she's probably trying to figure out what the assets of Mongo Bongo were so she can, make a claim for her share. It's fair game under California community property law.
I think that's different than New York, and I'm very happy about that. Terry, does this open a possibility for Pitt to subpoena Jolie's records, and how public will their private finances become if this continues?
Well, all is fair in love and war, and I do believe Pitt is probably going to file for some discovery, tit for tat. Listen, it's not a substantive decision. It's a decision that's really process-oriented. Of course, they're going to get documents from each other, and it's going to be primarily financial documents because we do need to see how much was in both accounts, and they're going to have to bring all of that out. Now, sadly, I think they're going to be airing their dirty laundry out in front of the public because they are now on trial. And it's one of those cases where they could have easily settled this in a separate private affair.
Yeah, it's interesting that they didn't go that route. Well, Philip, Terry, a pleasure as always, and thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.